Welcome back, pod people. My guest today is Anthony Cousins, who is the director and one of the writers of Frogman, a creature feature found footage film that I had a lot of fun with. I actually picked up Frogman at a horror convention in Colorado Springs, where I met Anthony and a few of the other people who worked on it. I own a signed VHS copy of it, and I've now watched Frogman twice, once the VHS and once on Found, a streaming service that specializes in found footage films. Frogman is an example of a less commonly featured type of found footage film, but one that I really enjoy, which, as I said, is a creature feature. So instead of it being haunting or possession or something where you can just sort of have a person acting weird or a sound happens off screen and everybody goes, "Oh, what was that?" They had to actually make a big old costume and put a lot of effort into what sure looked to me like some pretty convincing practical effects. And so I definitely enjoyed that. Frogman is a bit of a slow burn at first. We spend a while introducing the characters, getting to know the reasons why they're doing what they're doing, investigating the legend of the Loveland Frogman, and then things really start moving at quite a pace in the second half of the film. So thank you for coming on the show, Anthony.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So the Loveland Frogman is a pre-existing myth. You guys did not invent it for the movie. So how did you decide on that to be the subject of your film?
I mean, I've always loved cryptids and creatures. I mean, it just goes kind of there's a Venn diagram there with horror. I definitely fall in the middle of it. Um, but I was not aware of the Frogman until maybe like 2017, 18, something like that. Came across my radar. It came across my radar, my lead's radar that plays Dallas, and my co-writer. At the same time, we all found out about this thing, and we're just totally fascinated and cracking each other up talking about it and learning about it. And I couldn't tell you exactly at what point John and I were like, you know what, we should just write an actual movie about this thing where, starring Nate, where he's trying to find it. But at some point we got there, and and we wrote it. It was nearly done in 2020. And then the pandemic gave us plenty of time to finish it. And and we shot it the following year in 2021. So yeah, and a lot of people, I think a lot of people still see the movie and think we made it all up. Um, but even the people that figure out Frogman really exists think that we added the wand bit, and we didn't. That's part of the legend. That's why this cryptid in particular fascinates me so much. Is just like there's other cryptids that you can kind of understand. Like, okay, you see weird shadows in the night. Maybe it looks like a Mothman. You see a bear walking upright for a second. It looks like a Sasquatch. But like, how do you accidentally see a frog with a wand? In the middle of the woods. So I think he's out there personally.
All right. Well, I mean, the thing that immediately occurs to me is that like it picked up a stick for some reason. But
Yeah.
yeah, so when I
Hmm.
purchased the VHS of Frogman, I read on the back, it's the Loveland Frogman. I was like, Loveland? That's a town in Colorado. I know Loveland. I've been there. But no,
Yeah.
in fact, Ohio, Frogman, Loveland, Ohio. Are you from Ohio? Is that like a local
No,
thing for you?
I'm from Minneapolis.
Okay.
But and it was kind of, it felt like really felt like I should visit Loveland, Ohio before making this movie. Um, and that was something I really wanted to do. And then we kind of looked into the fandom around Frogman, and there really wasn't any. He's a very, I wouldn't even say a B level cryptid. At the time he was more of like a D level cryptid, and there wasn't much at all about him. So I was like, I looked up some pictures of Loveland, Ohio, and I was like, that looks like some small towns around Minneapolis. we can just shoot it here. It's not. I don't think I have to use it to. And and then we start shooting the movie, and then the first annual Frogman Festival pops up in Loveland, Ohio, the following spring, and it's like a huge hit. And it was just like, oh shit, like I guess people do care about this thing, maybe people in the town are gonna care about how we portrayed them. But thankfully they invited us to the festival the following year to screen the movie. And so I did finally get to go to Loveland, and I gotta say, we did a pretty good job, I think. Uh, finding the best Loveland we could in Minneapolis. I didn't have any locals that were upset with us. They thought we did a pretty good job.
Oh yeah. That's interesting. I had definitely assumed that you'd filmed it in the actual Loveland. So like this, the bit where they walk past the Welcome to Loveland sign, that's like you guys made that sign?
Yeah, we made it. We're actually we're going back to Loveland for Frogman Festival the beginning of March. And I'm really hoping I can finagle the cast to come with me so that we could maybe shoot a few exterior shots in Loveland proper while we're there. Um, just to get a little bit of it in, because we're gonna shoot the rest of the sequel in Minneapolis again, but budget,
Yeah. Yeah. So you're making a sequel.
yeah.
Yeah, all right. You want to tell us a bit about that?
Um, yeah, how much can I say? I kind of like the closer we get to shooting it, the more excited I get, and I just want to let it all rip. But I'll just say it's we did something I think kind of unique for found footage, which is we left a handful of characters alive at the end of our movie, which is uh
It is
not a
pretty
common.
common. Yeah, it's pretty common for everybody to die in this kind of movie.
Right, which is fine. A lot of found footage sequels are just kind of like clean slates. But I mean, I thought me and my co-writer thought it'd be super fun to see, how the events of the first movie impacted these people like a year and a half later. It's an incredibly traumatizing, insane experience. So it's really about that, like we leave Dallas at the end of the movie kind of with this like what the hell have I done type feeling over, what he exposed his friends to um in his crazy pursuit to find the Frogman, and now he has Frogman's wand, and so it's just like, okay, if that's where we start, where do we go from there? Because like you said, the first one's a slow burn, and it kind of felt like it needed to be, to really establish these characters, and we really wanted to like show you the Frogman immediately, but then make you question, is there really a Frogman? Like like what was that at the beginning that we saw, until you finally see it, is like, oh yeah, there's definitely a Frogman. So starting the sequel, the cat's out of the bag, monsters are real, so it's like we can't do a slow burn again. We just got to start with craziness. So there's a little taste of what we're up to.
Yeah, cool. That does sound like a good way of making sure you don't just make the same movie twice, which a lot of these a lot of people who have a successful first movie and then want to make a sequel to it, they end up making something that's almost exactly the same, which can be entertaining, but it's more exciting when you change things up. So that's neat. Um, yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that you guys didn't shoot in Loveland because there's so many Frogman things, like the gift shop, the little like have not cardboard cutout, the wood cutout
Hmm.
thing where you stick your face in and you look like you're the Frogman,
Yeah.
like they have at the circus and things like that. And I did not expect that you guys made all of those. I definitely assumed you just walked around Loveland and took footage of all the Frogman things that you found.
Sadly, there's not a whole lot of Frogman things in Loveland. It's
Ah,
very, very unfortunate. It's not like that at all. They haven't. They're coming to embrace it. I think I'd like to think our movie is a part of that. But especially the Frogman Festival that started really made the town realize, like, oh, okay, we got something here. We should maybe embrace this. But at the time, there was, not a gift shop, and you could barely find anything Frogman related. So yeah, that was all our production designer team, Jason Thomas. He created all that stuff.
That's great. This is a found footage film, and as is very often the case with found footage films, it really leans into the VHS aesthetic. I assume that a lot of what motivated that was just that, like, nostalgia. It looks interesting, it adds texture to what's going on, and it the same sort of principle of, like, if you're not super confident in your CGI, you put it in a rainy scene at night.
Yeah.
Um, is that the sort of motivation that was going on for you, or were there other factors as well for why you chose a VHS aesthetic despite it being set in the modern day?
Yeah. Definitely nostalgia. Essentially, I'd say there's a big part of me in the Dallas character. Um, and a part of that being his nostalgia for that camera. That's literally the camera that my dad would shoot all of our family vacations on every summer. We would go, up to northern Minnesota, and my dad would bring that camera and film all us kids like playing around on Lake Superior, and then we'd take the camera, and like we were just at Christmas we were rewatching all these home videos that we shot on that camera, and it's just like it feels like you're watching found footage. It's like, who's shooting now? Like, it's just, hard cuts, and you're like, I don't know who's behind the camera, but now the camera's down here, so it's one of us kids. Uh, it was just so fun. So like, so I really wanted to shoot on that, but obviously at the budget we were working with, we couldn't do a period piece. That'd be way too difficult. So
Yeah.
we tried to give him, an emotional reason as to why he would want to shoot on a high 8 camera in modern day, and it's because that's the camera he caught the original Frogman footage on. Um, yeah, so that's why we went with that. And that to me, we kind of did our Blair Witch thing, and now in Frogman 2, we're gonna try something very different. It's gonna be on modern cameras, nice cameras. It's going to look like a legitimate documentary. There's kind of a new reason why the cameras are rolling this time. So the FX team and I have talked about that. Because I warned them on the first one. We're shooting on high 8, so you have a lot of forgiveness. Don't kill yourself making the Frogman look, photo real. But on this one, I was like, I'm sorry, this is gonna be 1080p. Like the Frogman's got to look real this time. So whole new suit.
All right. Yeah, sort of reminds me of in the August Underground trilogy how August Underground and Mortem were shot on, well, not shot on VHS, but shot on a modern camera and then transferred to VHS because within the fiction of the film, they're shot on VHS.
Mm,
And then the third one, Penance, was, shot on consumer grade HD. So
mm.
same sort of thing going on there.
I'll have to check
Because
those out. I've never seen those.
oh yeah, they're extremely realistic movies made to look as though they are the home movies of a serial killer.
Oh wow. Okay.
They're from the early 2000s. I interviewed the director, Fred Vogel, so you can listen to that
Nice.
later if you want. They're pretty influential in the, like, sort of fake snuff film subgenre of found footage, because they're very realistically made.
Mm,
The director used to be an instructor at the Tom Savini special effects school, so all of the gore and everything is very realistic.
wow.
Definitely recommend them. Uh, yeah, so a lot of found footage films either go for uh,
Hmm.
like a lot of sort of vagueness and ambiguity where you're not quite sure what's going on, like in the Blair Witch Project,
Mm-hmm.
or they go for like really graphic on-screen gore like in August Underground. And in Frogman, it kind of does neither. There isn't a whole lot of like gore or anything like that, but also you do get a good look at what's going on by the end of the film. So talk a bit about that creative decision.
Um, I mean, I think like for one thing, Frogman is not a well-known cryptid. Um, I think you could make, and people have made Bigfoot movies and Mothman movies where you never see the Bigfoot or the Mothman because anyone watching the movie likely has a rough idea of what this thing looks like. Um, so you can kind of keep it ambiguous and you still feel its presence. But making a movie called Frogman, it really felt like we needed to see a Frogman at some point. um, and I'm super obsessed with Lovecraft and the world he built, and in particular the Shadow over Innsmouth. That's like one of my favorite stories ever, and I'm constantly looking for ways to mm, like infuse Shadow over Innsmouth into everything I do. And so at some point it was like, well, what if what if the town has like a secret cult and worships the Frogman and mates with him, and maybe they're the children of Frogman. um so that was the kind of stuff I was like, I don't think we can just talk about it. I think we got to see it. And selfishly, I love being on set with effects. I want to see a little tadpole baby, and I want to see the frogman wrap his tongue around somebody. So yeah, we had to see it. I love this, the more ambiguous stuff. I really love Willow Creek and Blair Witch. I mean, Blair Witch I watched over and over during the course of making this movie to just kind of ground myself back in like what found footage is all about. But I don't know if personally if I would ever make a movie where you don't see anything.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I think that the don't see anything can work well for like a possession movie or a ghost movie or something like that. But if it's about like a physical monster, I do find myself a bit disappointed when, yeah, I've seen some of those Bigfoot movies where you never see Bigfoot, and I'm like, that's fine for a reality show or whatever. But if I'm watching a fictional movie, I want to at least get a glimpse of the Bigfoot at some point.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, like Blair Witch, I think Blair Witch is legitimately scarier. And the reason that movie is just so iconic is because you don't see anything. It makes it scarier. Um, if you would have saw the witch at some point, I don't even know what they would have done, but it probably would have been a letdown. But like
yeah.
because you never see her, but you see the impact she's having on these people, she can be anything. She could be your worst nightmare.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it does make it creepier when it's ambiguous like that. When it's something more explicitly supernatural, I think.
Hmm.
Whereas, um, I don't think there was a lot in Frogman that was necessarily supernatural. It could all like a cryptid in the strictest meaning is just an animal that hasn't been proven to exist yet. And
Right.
so, like for a while, gorillas were cryptids because we weren't certain that gorillas existed, and now we're confident that they do, and so they're not considered a cryptid anymore.
Yeah.
And and in the movie, like there is stuff where it's not explicitly clear what's happening, but there's nothing where it's like nobody's like flying and shooting lightning or anything like that.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I liked the sort of groundedness, but yeah, like you said, the Lovecraftian aspects of it with the cult and everything. That's a fun way of expanding it beyond just there's a weird animal in the woods.
Yeah. It felt right with the wand being a part of his actual lore. It just felt
Yeah,
like we that kind of gave us the permission to get really weird with whatever we want, what lore we wanted to expand upon.
yeah, yeah. Um, was there any aspect of that that you wanted to include but like didn't have the budget for?
Yeah, we actually, if you're familiar with the Shadow over Innsmouth story,
I am.
there's
Yeah, I've read
yeah.
everything Lovecraft wrote.
Oh, nice. So there's that incredible scene where the main character is trying to escape the inn that he's staying at in town, and like all the townspeople are coming for him.
Yeah, the big
And it's such a
crowd.
great scene. It's like probably the most cinematic thing Lovecraft ever wrote because he's got great ideas. and great world building. Not the greatest storyteller, I'd say, but like that is a really good scene. And so we literally tried to shoot that scene. We shot our characters like escaping out the hotel window and like going down the fire escape, and then they get in the street, and like there's all these froggy looking townspeople like rummaging around the street looking for them. And we shot that, and then it was like, this is so dumb because we don't have enough people.
Hmm.
Through the found footage lens, it just felt cheap. It didn't feel as big as it was supposed to feel.
Okay.
um and so we rewrote it because the first idea was like the whole town is in on it. And it was like, we just can't pull that off at what at the budget we're at and what we have to work with. So how about it's just a small secret cult society? It's not the whole town. So that's kind of why we rewrote things, and instead of escaping the hotel, they they find the caves and then find the cult through the basement of the hotel they're staying at. So yeah, there's a couple things like that um, that we wanted to be bigger and just couldn't quite pull off. But so we learned a lot. I think the second movie is just going to be so much more fun because we're going into it with more understanding of how you utilize found footage. And so we've got ideas for the second one that are way bigger than anything in the first movie, and I feel like we can probably pull them off this time.
Great. Yeah, that's cool. A lot of the time when I ask somebody about like what's something you would have added if you had more budget, the answer is something about like uh, special effects or something in post production or something like that. But just like we would have hired more extras is a great answer.
Well, I did also I my initial vision for like when you finally see the Frogman and he like chases them through the woods. I pictured that being way different. I wanted to see him like hop towards camera, and I wanted to see him hop into the trees, and then the camera whips up and you see him jumping from tree to tree. I thought that would be so cool, like a Jurassic Park scene. But there was no way to do that except CGI. Um,
Yeah.
and and we tried, and it just looked so bad because you think that VFX is the answer to everything these days, and it is if you have the money. It's very expensive, even if you find someone that's like passionate and willing to do it. Like there's no cheap way to do it, unless you know how to do it yourself. So that's why we tried that, and then had to just go back to like, okay, you know what, get in the Frogman suit, stand in that tree. I'm gonna run around. I'm gonna whip to you, and then I'm gonna whip away. And like, we just did that a few times, and that's what that scene is now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a probably a good decision. The CGI is hard to get right, and especially in a genre like found footage that really depends on making things look realistic. I think that would
Oh
have detracted from things.
yeah, and that's the other thing. And actually, that just reminded me of how I even came to this epiphany. It's kind of weird. Um, so I knew the CGI scene wasn't working, and I didn't know what to do about it. I was like really like racking my brain on like, how do we replace this? How do we fix this? I went and I saw ET on like 35 millimeter at like in Minneapolis, and the scene where ET is like running through the woods at the beginning is completely practical, and you're just getting these glimpses of them, and then you just see like bushes moving and shaking. Um, and this is like a big budget Spielberg blockbuster movie. And then that made me remember when I was a kid, and they brought out the enhanced version where they added a CG ET, and he's like bouncing around, um, you know, and and it looks so bad. And like, anyone that saw it was like, we don't want that. And even Spielberg realized like, I don't want that. And like, he got rid of that version, and now this is the version. I was like, oh my God, what are we doing? Like we could do this practically. You don't have to see Frogman like jump all over the countryside. Like he could just be like posted up in a tree, and then a bush shakes. Like
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the kind of movie we're making anyways. So thank you, ET.
yeah. So, in the context of the film, they're shooting on that high 8 video camera. What did you guys actually film on?
So we really shot, I would say, about 60% of the movie on that high eight camera.
Really?
Um,
Wow.
yeah. Uh, like day one, we shot on the high eight camera and we shot on a Black Magic pocket camera.
The
And
the 4K or a different one?
I think it's the 6K it was. I don't know if
Oh,
we're shooting
fancy.
6K, um but the idea was like, okay, we'll shoot a little bit of high eight footage in every location, and then we'll shoot the actual movie on the Black Magic camera, and then we have this high eight,
As like
reference footage.
reference footage. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and doing that day one, I was like, why wouldn't we shoot on this thing? I think I had this fear that like if we actually shot on a high eight camera, nobody would want to see the movie, or like especially like streamers or distributors like wouldn't want to pick it up,
Hmm.
because it's like 480 420 resolution or whatever,
Yeah.
or 480.
480p, yeah.
So I kind of had this fear. But after day one, I was like, we're not wasting our time shooting this on a Black Magic when we could just shoot it on the high camera. Like the whole reason to want it on high eight is it has so much character to it. And like part of that character is just the way the camera operates in a way that you can't replicate. Like the way it zooms and the way it autofocuses and the way it deals with color. Like I don't like what a waste of time to try and make that, to replicate that in post. So we shot the majority of the movie on the height. There's the night scenes just couldn't the height couldn't handle the night scenes in the woods and stuff like that and in the caves. So that stuff we did shoot on a Black Magic and then transferred to a high eight tape. And then I played it off my camera, and transferred it back to digital.
That's interesting. Most of the time when I see somebody making a found footage film like that, they do shoot it on like a modern camera, and then in post, typically people don't try to reproduce the look in like DaVinci or some other color grading software. Instead, they just transfer it onto a VHS or a high 8 tape or something and then transfer it back.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, you're reducing the number of steps you have to do if you just shoot it on the high 8 in the first place.
yeah.
Okay, so is this the first film that you've directed?
It's the first feature length film. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, feature
Yep.
length. Cool. Um, now that you've finished the process and you're getting ready to make your second feature length film, is there anything that like if you could travel back in time to before you made this, is there anything you would do differently,
Oh
knowing
my
now
God.
what you know now?
So much. I would do so much differently. um, I mean, I've made like a good handful of short films, and they're all traditional, like format. I've never done found footage before, and found footage was a really interesting learning curve. It's kind of like starting from square one. It's got a whole new set of rules, and the script we wrote, some things just couldn't work in the found footage format, and we ended up having to reshoot a lot of stuff and rethink a lot of stuff. Um, and that delayed us a lot. I mean, we started shooting in 2021, in like August, September 2021, and then we didn't release until spring 2024. Well, we did festivals in fall 2023, but it took a lot longer than I ever expected it to. Um, and that was just because we were figuring it out. Um, and so, going into the sequel, we asked ourselves that question all the time while writing the script. Is like, okay, is this really going to work? In found footage, is this going to work? It works great on the page, but we know that sometimes doesn't translate. Um, and then also just trying to have a much quicker turnaround and not let this one linger. So we're going to shoot this spring and hopefully have it done by this fall.
All right. Yeah. So you said that there are sort of different rules for found footage and versus more of a traditional, I don't know what you'd call it, fictional camera thing where the camera doesn't exist within the world of the story.
Yeah.
Um, what are those different rules that you discovered?
Um, well, I think the biggest component is like when you're doing other narrative stuff, you can be overly dramatic, um, almost theatrical, and it works. Found footage, whether you're trying to make something that really feels authentic and like make the viewer question if it's real or not, or whether you're doing something ridiculous like a frog with a wand, you're still going for the feeling of authenticity. Um, and that's something that's really hard to capture unless you have the right people. Like a big part of it, it comes down to the actors. You got to get actors that can really just embody the characters and make it feel improv even when it's not improv. Like there's a good amount of improv in this movie, but there's also the majority of it was scripted and was shot the way it was scripted, but they did such a great job making it feel off the cuff. I think that's the number one thing. And then there's just lots of weird, tricky situations like, we didn't have two cameras built in to the story. There's always just the one camera for the most part. So, you know, your scene just is what it is. Like you don't have any like editing points. You can't cut to a new angle. Um, and so we ended up with these really long scenes. And there's a couple long scenes in the movie that I like. Um, and there was like two or three more that we ended up cutting because it was just like, God, we have like 5 8-minute scenes in this movie, that are all just one shot of two people talking. And that's just a little too much. So it's a lot of stuff like that, trying to figure out how to get exposition across because, in a traditional movie, you can show the audience something that the characters don't see. You
Yeah.
can't do that in found footage. If the camera sees it, then the characters have seen it.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. I do always I think a lot about like the pacing and how long a scene can be and how long a shot can be and things like that because yeah, like you said, like in real life, having an 8-minute conversation with somebody is not a particularly long conversation. Like our conversation here has not been going on exceptionally long, and it's already more than half an hour. But if
Hmm.
this were in a movie, that would be an incredibly long conversation. And so I don't, I have a feeling for like what is too long, but I don't really have a good mental model for like why it's too long.
Yeah.
Uh, all I can think is that it's like being in a conversation where you never get a chance to say anything if you're in the audience, where you're
Hmm.
just watching other people talk. But yeah, it's interesting. It's a balancing act between like realism versus keeping the audience engaged.
Yeah. I think it really, that to me really comes down to pacing. Um, Pacing matters so much more than runtime. If your movie is paced well and keeps up the momentum, um, then your audience will never know. And like the movie I always think of when it comes to this is the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek. That movie
Okay.
flies by for me for some reason. And there's a lot of movies like that, but for whatever reason, that movie I'm just like that movie feels like it's an hour long because I'm just like so into what's happening the entire time. And the way it's paced, it's just got this energy to it. The camera's like always moving with the characters. And, it's like they're in school, and then it's like, oh, shit's hitting the fan. We got to go into outer space and deal with this thing. And it's just, I don't know. I think that movie is a masterclass in pacing because I think it's
Hmm.
2 hours or maybe over 2 hours, and you just do not feel it at all.
Interesting. It's been a bit since I've watched that. I'll have to give it another look and keep that in mind. I was watching yeah, a little bit more than 2 hours. I was watching a documentary, a while ago that I'd seen more than once, and I was at an event where they were showing it again because it's about local farmers. And I was like, "Okay, this is like the 3rd time I've seen this. I don't really need to watch it again for the content of it. I'm just gonna count how long each shot is.
Mm,
Just like every time it cuts to a new shot, I'm gonna, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and
yeah.
the shots were like 5 seconds long on average, which is just I would never have guessed that if I hadn't actually counted it. It just seems so short.
That's
Um,
incredibly quick. Yeah.
yeah. And like occasionally they would be up to 10 seconds long, and there were two shots that were 20 seconds long, but those were both like an old man getting out of bed kind of thing, where it's very much meant to feel really slow. And
Uh-huh.
so now I want to do that with more movies and see if that's an outlier or if shots are always that fast in typical films.
Yeah. That's interesting. I feel like that, on average, that's really short. You think of something like high octane, like John Wick, you know, there's probably 20-second, 30-second shots of him, moving his way down a hallway or something. But then once the action starts, those shots are probably like 3 seconds or less each.
Yeah. Yeah. Although there is also a lot more motion both of the camera and in the camera in a tightly choreographed film like John Wick, whereas this was a documentary, and so
Hmm.
nothing was choreographed. Everybody was, either like sitting there or it was a shot of people doing ordinary things.
Yeah.
So that I guess if you really want to keep the energy up, you have to make that sense of action happen in the edit.
That's really interesting. Did it feel did those cuts feel justified to you?
Yeah, I think I think I had the idea to do this because is a relatively mellow subject matter. It's like, here's a family farm, and here's what it's like for the younger generation to take over from the older generation.
Hmm.
But the whole movie feels very high energy, despite all of the characters moving at like a pretty languid pace. And so that got me thinking about it. And that's what prompted me to count the length of the shots in the first place. And so while I do think that it all feels justified, and it very much it does that thing that you were just saying about the Star Trek film of it feels like the pacing is really really on point and quick, and you never feel bored, you never get tired of a shot or anything like that. um and this particular documentary has won a bunch of awards and stuff, and so of course it wouldn't surprise me if it's doing things out of the ordinary in that regard,
Hmm.
because there certainly are plenty of documentaries that are slow paced and can be dull at times.
Yeah.
um, when you were designing the costume, or when you're who did design the costume for the Frogman?
Ryan Shadley and Becky Ingram.
Okay,
Yeah, they're a long time. Well, Becky's a more recent collaborator. Ryan, I've been working with for over 10 years on everything I've done.
nice.
Yeah.
So did they also design the fake Frogman costume?
No, that was our production designer. Yeah, which the funny thing is, then I looked up like fan art of Frogman, of which there's not. Yeah, now there's a lot. At the time, there wasn't that a whole lot. But one of my favorite pieces was kind of, it looked like the Frogman like had a piece of like Navy SEAL camo, like a camo cape over him. Um,
Oh,
and I thought that was kind of a cool look. Like, ooh, he's got some, attire. Um, and then when our production designer brought that fake Frogman suit, yeah, he had this like, kind of camo cape for him. Looks like kind of moss or something. I was like, oh, that's awesome.
it's interesting, like with movies like this, especially for like micro budget films and especially for found footage films, I expect things to look fairly cheap at times. And so it would not have surprised me if, when watching a movie like this, if the fake Frogman costume uh, was the kind of thing that people used for the real Frogman.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but no, in fact, the real Frogman costume is really, really convincing. So, how do you guys do like the scene where the Frogman wraps the lady in the tongue?
Um, well, I'll say the effects budget was like literally a third of our budget. That's hands down
Okay.
where the majority of the money went. Because in my mind, you make a movie called Frogman. Frogman's the star. Like, you gotta
Yeah.
deliver on the Frogman, that's gotta be the most important thing. Um, the tongue was basically a really long sock, that they stuffed with, I don't remember what they stuffed it with, but they stuffed it with a bunch of, soft, like, insulation, and then we literally just wrapped it around her, and stuck one end in Frogman's mouth, so when it comes in and out of his mouth, that's CG, but then we just wrapped her up and laid her there on the floor.
Nice. So the sequel to Frogman is the next feature-length film that you're working on, and that's going to be another found footage film. Do you have any other uh, anything else in the works that's not found footage?
Yeah, I have a lot of, scripts ready to go that, I'm trying to get off the ground right now. Um, yeah, that's I literally just moved to LA like a couple months ago, and that's what I'm doing here is trying to get something else made. And I love what we're doing with Frogman. I'm really excited to do Frogman 2. I'm very antsy, so like honestly, if these other non-found footage things don't get off the ground this year, I'll probably make another found footage movie in the Frogman universe like before the end of the year, like maybe shoot it like late summer. Um, but yeah, hopefully one of these other things goes. And they're, all across the board. One's very Lovecraftian, one's very, body horror Cronenberg. One's kind of like a horror movie version of Stand By Me. Um, yeah,
Oh,
got all sorts of weird stuff ready to go.
great. Uh, yeah, I'll have a few things to say about that once we stop recording. Um, so you're a big fan of found footage. Is there anything that you think people should be making in found footage that you don't see people doing,
Um,
or that you just want to see people make more of?
Interesting. Um, I mean, it's a lot of the same, like different flavors of the same thing the majority of the time with found footage. Um, and when it's done well, I love it all. But I'd like to see people try different genres. And I think that like where that really starts is just like, you know, what is a scenario that a camera like why a camera would be rolling and not cut when like crazy shit starts to happen.
Hmm.
I think that's like I'm sitting outside of Chuck E. Cheese right now, and like as you asked me this question, I look at the Chuck E. Cheese and I'm like, oh, what if a found footage movie started at a little kid's birthday party at a Chuck E. Cheese? Like mom or dad is filming all the kids opening their presents and playing on the games, and then like I don't know, some sort of the cheese is tainted and all the kids turn feral and start vomiting cheese and turning into little cheesy zombies or something. I don't know. Like, I think there's just like lots of fun reasons as to why a camera would be filming um that haven't been explored yet.
Yeah, that makes me think of the mascot horror subgenre and the movie Danger Children at Play.
Oh, I haven't
Uh,
seen that.
oh, that's great. It's a I don't remember the reason that the kids go feral, but it's a like kids go feral horror film made back in the
Cool.
80s by Troma. Um and yeah, so it's a bunch of adults having to deal with like murderous children. Uh, it's great.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I really love the VHS series because of that too. It's like they're cranking so many VHS movies out a year that they're really challenging the filmmakers they get to come up with new unique concepts as to why a camera would be filming. So there's been like a news anchor, like reporting from the scene, and there's been in the last one there was like a really great sequence that was like uh body cam of a skydiver. They're like skydiving
Yeah.
for this guy's birthday, and that turned out to be so cool. Um,
Yeah, I agree. That was one of my favorite segments from that one.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm currently working on editing a sort of experimental found footage film where it's starts off as a documentary that then crazy stuff starts happening while they're filming the documentary. So,
Mm.
yeah, I agree. People being creative as to why they're filming stuff is a cool aspect to explore in found footage.
Yeah, I think if you don't, if you're interested in making a found footage movie and you don't know where to start, I think that's a great place to start. Um, is just trying to come up with a reason the camera's rolling you haven't seen before.
Yeah. So, uh, where do you see the future of independent filmmaking going?
Um, I I'm feeling really optimistic about it right now. I feel like you can make a movie for cheaper than ever before. Um, and you can actually get it out there. You can put it on streaming. So there's all these great streaming services constantly popping up. I mean, you can put your movie on Tubi, Amazon. Now, if you got found footage, you can put it on the Found app. Um, and I think there's a hunger, at least when it comes to genre stuff, there's really a hunger for independent film because people are getting burnt out on what Hollywood is putting out on a bigger scale. I think it's really just they've become so formulaic where and this is how Hollywood's always worked. Oh, something worked, star people like Star Wars, let's make 10 Star Wars movies. But it's getting somehow it's getting there's some really fun, unique copycats within the let's try to make another Star Wars, like they're trying to replicate something but make something of their own. They're not even trying to do that anymore. They're like, oh, that worked, literally just reskin it, get like make me the same movie with a new skin on it. Um and yeah,
Are you
so I
talking
just
about like Rebel Moon or I'm
um
like I'm not sure what you're gesturing at.
that's I see the major studios doing this where I'll see a trailer for a new movie like the new Captain America, and I'm like I've already seen that movie. Like what are
Oh,
you
okay.
doing? What are you doing that's new? Um so I think it feels like it's made by a committee, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. And I think whether audiences realize that's what is turning them off from it or not, I think they feel it. They feel like, oh, okay, this is a movie that's made by a committee and by a company. And so there seems to be more of an interest in independent film because it's coming from, a vision and a voice and like a new perspective. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think indie film's gonna kind of blow up right now because it can.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it's easier to make a movie than ever before, and thanks to all of these different streaming services and everything, it's easier to find independent films than ever before. Um, so yeah, where can people watch your stuff and follow along with what you're making? You already mentioned Found, the streaming service focused on found footage films. Anywhere else?
Um, yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, cousins_Anthony, and then Frogman movie on Instagram also. I think if you look up my name on YouTube, a bunch of my shorts will pop up. Um, I think, and then uh, and then I did segments for the Scare Package movies that are on Shutter. Yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah, go to Found if you want to watch Frogman. You can watch it free with ads.
Yeah, yeah, it's always a great way for great way to make things accessible. Is I really love things like Found and Tubi where you can watch it without having to pay a monthly fee.
Yeah,
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you for coming on and talking with me.
yeah. Thanks for having me.